How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to our Nexus dashboard series. It's been a little bit since I recorded the last video, a couple of hours. As you can see, I've gotten pretty much everything stood up operationally, or at least I booted everything up. This is going to be for DC1 and the LAN environment that we're going to do some config work in. What I'm going to do with Nexus 7 and 8 is I'm going to onboard them right away. We're going to get them added to dashboard, reboot them, all that good stuff. And then once they're added, that should take a little bit of time to do. And once we get that process finished, I'm going to go ahead and immediately start setting up the external BGP peerings. So CAT AK 15 and 16, I'm going to use gig or BGP 6511 for its AS number. And we're going to get that squared away so that they're there. And then what I'm going to do internally in the fabric is from these guys here and then the rest of the environment, I'm just going to enable OSPF and the rest of the network and get that all squared away. Now, depending on the environment and depending on how the architecture is laid out, let's say, for example, that everything from here down is in a colo where it's not on-prem. And then from the colo or the data center, wherever it might be residing, to the actual where the users actually sit, let's say that's in another location and you have to run like a point-to-point connection or what have you, then that'll be the other variation of how that could come into play, where the LAN and the data center are not in the same building. They may not even be on the same campus. Like you can have multiple buildings interconnected through structured high-speed, 40 or 100 gig cabling in a location, and there's multiple buildings connecting everything together. The data center might not even be at that location. It might just have a very large campus environment. And if that's the case, that works too. I have a couple of customers that have very, very large topologies, and that's actually how one of them works. So we're basically building this as if everything was in one location. Maybe building A is the data center, building B is where users sit. Or you got one big building and multiple rooms inside of it. The data center is just one room inside the building. It really depends on the architecture and the where things are going to sit. It really makes no difference to us in this case. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to bring over these guys here. We're going to actually, I don't need to bring that over. I don't know why I did that. When I bring up Nexus 7 and Nexus 8, I will get them squared away. So let's go ahead and I'm going to get out of the way. Say add switches. Of course, I need to log back in. And we'll go to DC1, add a pair of switches. And I'm going to do 10.255.1.97 through 98. We're going to say NDFC. 0 hops, don't preserve the config, discover switches. There they are. Say add switches. And I'm going to bring this guy over here like so. And we're going to wait till this process happens. I'm going to mute myself while this does its... Actually, you know what? You've seen this before. So this is nothing new to you. So I'm just going to pause the video until the switches are completely rebooted and they are brought back online, and then we'll be able to go to the next stage. Alright, so it's been a little bit since the switches have come back online. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to change the role of 7 and 8 to be border. So we're going to do actions, set role, and we're going to say border and select. Click on OK there. We're going to go to Actions, Recalculate, and Deploy. And so we're going to do a little bit of spine config since we need to add the switches to the fabric. Give that a couple of seconds to do its thing. Alright, so it's under a little bit of a load at the moment. You gotta figure it's adding more switches and stuff like that. So We have a couple more lines of config for the spines, and then a whole bunch of lines of config for the borders. Basically the same process as you saw before. We have a little bit more. We have some prefix lists being added for not propagating routes out and things like that. A bunch of additional route maps for blocking traffic and stuff like that. So on and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. I'm going to go ahead and click on deploy all, and I'm going to mute until this is done. Alright, so that's done. So that's the easy part, right? We have the switches added to the fabric, everybody's happy, everything looks good. So now the next stage is the interesting thing with CAT-AK 15 and 16. So I think I briefly mentioned it a couple times in the past, but I'm going to bring it up again since we're basically at that point now, where you have to add these two devices to its own fabric. This is going to be an external fabric, and eventually what we're going to do is we're going to just call this the iOS6E DC1 iOS6E fabric, just so that we know what it is. And what we're going to do is once these switches are, we're going to do a little bit of configuration on them, so they're reachable by Nexus dashboard, and they can be read-only visible by dashboard. So we're not going to be using dashboard to configure the XE boxes. We're going to be using them to say, can we log into them? Can we access the box? Great. That's all we need to do. It's nothing more than that. So it's a read-only vision into it. You'll see a lot of, you'll see the CLI trigger when you see NDFC log in and things like that. What we're going to do is once we do that, then we'll be able to join it to a fabric as read-only. And then with that fabric, what we're going to end up doing is the external fabric and DC1 are going to talk to each other. And we're going to form links from 7 and 8 to 15 and 16, and that's going to be our eBGP Peerings. And then once we have that all stood up and working, this is going to take us a few minutes to get that done. Then we'll be able to go through and I don't have the IP addressing configured for any of this stuff yet, or any of this stuff done. I'm going to do that in another video. But once we get that all done, we'll do the OSPF configuration in the LAN, and then we'll do some redistribution between OSPF and BGP. And what will end up happening is the two subnets that you see coming from DC1 will actually be propagated outbound as /24s to the rest of the LAN. And then switch 21 and 22 will see that as OSPF external routes. And what we'll be able to do once we get PC 51 to 54 configured, we then should be able to say telnet to server 36 and things like that. So the traffic will flow through the fabric to get to where it's got to go. That's ultimately what we're trying to do by just demonstrating the external connectivity and things like that. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get that configured. We're going to focus on CAT-AK 15 first, and I'm going to use 10.255 15 and 16. So what I'll do here is on CAT-AK 15, do a show IP interface brief. We can see that it's getting an IP address of .66. I'm just going to go ahead and change that real quick. So host name is going to be CAT-AK 15, interface gig 8. IP address here would be 10.255.1.15/24. That usually takes a second to hang, but once it does, we'll be able to come in here and type in username is going to be NDFC privilege level 15. Password is going to be password. And so it'll take, it's like you should be using a different level configuration. You should be using something more like secret is password, right? So we can do that. It's basically gonna squawk and say you can't do this. So I'll just go ahead and pull that out, and then we'll put this one back in. So that'll be the password. It won't squawk at that one. So that's literally all we have to do. There's nothing more we have to do at the moment. And I'll do the exact same on cat AK16. So we'll come up here. Host name will be cat 8k16. We'll go interface gig 8. IP address of 10.255.1.16/24. And then once that comes back, we'll be able to type in username is NDFC, privilege level 15, secret is that, and do show run section line. Do I have SSH? So I am allowing SSH inbound. Go ahead and just do save that config. It's not going to reboot the switch, so I don't have to worry about it losing config during a reboot, but I'm just going to save the config as I'm going along. Just it's a habit of mine to do that. Okay, so now that I've got those two added, what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to close this guy out. I'm going to go actions, create fabric. This is going to be the DC1 iOS XEX fabric, external. I'm going to choose a fabric. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and choose external connectivity network. Fabric for core and edge router deployments in the mix of Nexus and non-Nexus. I'm going to grab that, and the AS number here is 65011. Fabric monitor mode, if enabled, fabric is only monitored, no configuration will be deployed. And we're going to go ahead and there's some other capabilities in here you can turn on and stuff like that, but there's really nothing in here that we need to be specific with. I'm going to go ahead and click on save, and then we're going to go click on this guy, dive into it. We're going to say switches, add switches. The IP address here are going to be 10.255.1.15 through 16. We're going to say the NXOS, this is iOS XE, this is going to be a cat 8k, and it's going to be NDFC for that, and then the MD5, it should be sufficient with that. We're going to go ahead and say discover switches, and it should be able to discover those two devices, which is, oh, you know what? Okay, so when you get this, 16, did you configure that right? Do show IP interface brief. Do ping 10.255.1.11. Okay. So when you run into this problem here, do show run section line. We have to come underneath line VTY 0 space 4. Type in login is going to be local, not AAA or anything else. Because if you type in login, it's expecting a username and or a password set here. Because you can set the password right here, and if you don't set that, if it's not set, it won't let you log in. So line VTY 0 space 4 login local. So I'm gonna go ahead and try that again. Go click back and discover switches. Okay, it detected cat AK15 but 16, device timed out what? Timeout XC 1622. Let's see what is up with that. Do show run type section line. Okay, do show run section user. Very weird. I'm not terribly concerned about that at the moment. I can at least get 15 connected. If I couldn't get either one, I'd be surprised. But very weird. Let me just make sure that that is. We are connected to 8. And edit this. This is going to the management cloud, right? It is. Yeah, so everything looks good there. I'm not sure what the deal is. I'm not going to worry about it. I'll add cat AK15 and I'll figure out what's going on with 16 here in a little bit. It says connection to device timed out. So, not sure what that's all about. But I'll say add switches for that one. Again, this is a read-only thing, so I'm going to jump into cat AK15. And right now you can see NDFC is logging in. So we're trying to log in from 10.255.111. So this will go through, it's going to do a couple of teletype connections. So SSH in, perfect. It's been able to log in. I'm going to click on close. Now that it's there, I'll be able to go to the next stage. It's an edge router. So there are interfaces. It's going to see everything that's here. It's going to see the policies, all that type of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to close this out because there's nothing I can do operationally for this. So because it's a read-only environment, I'm going to close this guy out. And then on DC1, I'm going to log into him. I'm going to click on the links tab right here. And then if you look through here, DC1, there's a bunch of links. This is all the interconnections going back and forth between all the devices and stuff like that. I'm going to go say actions. I'm going to say create a link. And the link type is going to be interfabric. And then you have a bunch of different options here. So I'm going to choose VRF Lite, but if you want to do multi-site, underlay, overlay, BGP over IPsec, you have some other options. But the source fabric is going to be DC1. The destination fabric is going to be DC1 iOS XT external fabric. Source device is going to be Nexus 7, because that's who we're peer to. It could be 8 as well. They both can talk to it. And then we're going to say the selected device is going to be 15. The source interface, in this case here, is going to be, I'm going to say 13 on 7. And then destination interface is going to be 1 on cat AK15. So gig 1. My local AS number is going to be 65,001. The source IP address on the Nexus side, in this case here, is going to be 7 and 15. So I'm going to type in 10, 7, 15, 1, and 2. So 7 will be .1, 15 will be .2. So it'll be 10.7.15.1/30. And the destination IP will be 10.7.15.2. The remote AS is 65,011. Link MTU 9216. So it's already figured all that out. We go to advanced. You have a bunch of additional configuration options you can throw in there. And we have the default VRF config, which we don't really need to worry about. I'm just going to go click on save. And that's the end of that process. So now that we have that done, and if we come down, here it is there. We can see the peering set up. I'm actually going to do another one. I'm going to say actions, create, interfabric. The source fabric is DC1, destination fabric is XE. Source device is Nexus 8, destination device cat AK15. Source interface is going to be 13. And then destination interface should be gig 2. Gig 2. Gig 2, we're going to do 10.8.15.1/30 to 10.8.15.2. And we're going to go ahead and save. So what I've done, essentially, is I've got a logical link here and a logical link here. Once I have those two done, I'm going to be able to go underneath the VRF configuration, and I'm going to be able to attach that to a BGP configuration. And you're going to see what that looks like here in just a second. So I'm going to go underneath VRFs. I'm going to click on the VRF, dive into it here a little bit. And then we have VRF attachments. Now here's the interesting thing about this. When you've got these two right here, it says right now it's currently detached. So if I click on this guy and I click on this guy, then I go to actions and I say quick attach. It says that's fine. It's going to grab VLAN 70. Okay, so now I'm going to go, it's attached now. Go ahead and move that out of the way. What I need to go do now is on this guy, I need to go here and it's going to be edit. And what I need to do from here is I need to extend the VRF from here, from Nexus 7 and 8 outbound. So I'm going to come here and go VRF Lite. And then if I scroll down here, I have, I'm only seeing the one peering. Oh, you know why? That's because I clicked the Nexus 9K8. That's why. So that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and say attach all. And if we look through the config across the board of what we're configuring, everything looks good. So it's attached. I'm going to go ahead, save and edit next. So this is going to be Nexus 7. I'm going to extend this one here, and I'm going to go ahead and attach. Attach all. Save. So now that I've done that, the next stage for me to go do is you can go to networks, but I technically don't need to add these networks to the border because there's not going to be any devices attached to the border. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Actions. I'm going to go to Deploy. It's going to look at the config and see what it needs to do. So right now, if you look at it, I'm going to click on dependent config is this. So it's going to create the VRF, right? VLAN 70, the segment L3 VNI, all that type of stuff. Then it's going to create the BGP peerings. So I'm going to go under the BGP, and I'm going to form a peering to this guy. And it's also going to create the sub interface and do all the configuration it needs to do on the border in order for this to work. I'm going to say cancel, and I'm going to go ahead and deploy. It's going to go ahead and deploy both configs, and once it does, we'll be in pretty good shape. I'm going to go ahead and bring this guy up. So what I'm going to have to do is on CAT-AK 15, I'm going to have to do some additional configuration, but I'm just waiting for the config to finally be pushed. Because then I'll have two BGP peerings, 1 to 7, 1 to 8. Okay. They're done. I'm going to go ahead and close. Now it's been deployed. I'm going to go ahead and close this guy out. I'm going to go back to switches, Nexus 7, dive into this, go to links, and then I'm going to go to protocol view. So right now you don't have anything here yet, but I'm going to go ahead and get that peering up. Right now the admin state is the neighbor's missing. So I'm going to go over here to CAT-AK 15. Let's go ahead and pull this up. You'll notice that I have a couple of Palo firewalls. I'm going to do some testing here once I get this configuration up and running. So on 7, I'm going to come in here, log in, show IP interface brief VRF DC1 VRF prod 10.7.15.1 on ETH 113.70 show run interface ETH 13.70, and we can, you'll notice that there's no config there underneath the sub interface. It's kind of funny how that works. You've got to go do a show run section profile, and you're looking for this. This is what I wanted to see. The encapsulation is VLAN 70. So that means for CAT-AK 15 on gig 1, interface gig 1, no shut. And I'm going to type in gig 1.70, encapsulation.1q70. And just as a reminder, you don't need to have the sub interfaces here in a VRF. You can do VRF Lite on the edge if you want to, but there's really no need to. IP address here will be 10.7.15.2/30. I'm going to say do ping 10.7.15.1. Can I ping it? That's a good sign. Now I'm going to go out of here, type in router BGP 65011, type in no BGP default IPv4. So I'm going to have to manually activate any IPv4 peerings that I form. Neighbor of 10.7.15.1, remote AS of 65,001, address family IPv4 unicast, and I'm going to go ahead and activate that peering. Momentarily, that peering should come online. There it goes. And if I do show BGP IPv4 unicast summary, I'm learning 2 routes, which is going to be 10 and 11 respectively. I'm going to do the exact same thing for gig 2. So interface gig 2, no shut. And then gig 2.70, encapsulation.1q70. IP address here is going to be 10.8.15.2/30. Do ping 10.8.15.1. Router BGP 6511. Neighbor of 10.8.15.1. Remote AS of 65,001. Address family IPv4. And then activate the peering. That'll take a minute for the peering to come up, and once it does, we should have an active peering. We will be learning the route twice. There it goes. So do show BGP IPv4 unicast. I'm learning the routes twice, and that's really all I need to worry about for right now. So we're good to go there. So you're going to see a lot of this showing up. It's a pretty consistent thing. Don't let that freak you out if you see it. Okay, so now that I've got that done, that means that I'm learning routes from the rest of the fabric. So we have basically successfully configured an external peering outbound, and everybody's happy. The next stage for me to go do is, I'm going to, not in this video, but the next one, I'm going to spend a couple of minutes getting all the routers IP addressed, and the IP addressing scheme is going to be pretty simple. It's going to be 10 dot something, with the lower number being the second octet and the higher number being the third octet. So it'll be 10.15.17, 10.17.21, so on and so forth. And I'm going to see what's up with cat AK16, see if there's something I need to look into on that one. So that is the end of this video. So if you have any questions, leave me a comment in the comment section below. In the next video, I'm going to have everything IP addressed, and I'm going to walk you through getting OSPF set up. And I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to duplicate this so that we have, I'll use VLAN 100 here. Something like that. Come here, you. I'll put it over here in the middle. I'll move these guys. I'll move the firewalls out of the way. I don't need them right now anyway. So, actually, it would probably make more sense to scoot this over. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll have this guy sitting here, and then I'll just duplicate this one here, and I'll make a quick adjustment. This will be VLAN 101. Just so I can have two different subnets coming across. And you'll see some routes coming in from the outside. So I'm going to get that all configured. The switches will be all stood up. Well, I'll get the IP addressing done, and then from there I'll walk you guys through the initial steps of setting up the routing and stuff like that. Just the IP addressing is kind of redundant at this point. You should you'll see that it's going to be a manual config. So until next time, guys, thanks so much for stopping by, and I'll catch all of you in the next video.